So you want balance. I have about 10 minutes. Let's talk about it. This is a big one. I hear women all the time talking about, I want balance. I just want everything to be balanced, and they're working towards this idea of balance in their life. So have you seen that trend on TikTok where there's women striking the Nicki Minaj pose and they're like in a one-legged seated squat position and they're doing it in heels and they're doing it in I've seen a couple do it on like a stack of dumbbell weights and it's amazing, right? And they're super still and they're like dressed to the nines and they look gorgeous. And it's like this idea of, presence and being rooted and anchored. And I love it so much. And when I saw it, I had an epiphany because I thought, that's stability. That's balance. That takes stability and balance, right? To stand in 4-inch stiletto heels on one foot in a position that's low to the ground, especially if you're doing it on two pairs of dumbbell weights, And the thing that gets me about this idea of balance is if you've ever looked up what the concept of balance means, it means that it's equilibrium, right? It's the active ongoing process of managing multiple forces or priorities so that no part overtakes the other. So I think of it as like a pizza. You know what I mean? And if you cut a pizza, then each slice can be the same size and all the pizza slices are balanced, right? Now, that's an image in my mind that is very idealistic, right? My kids get a certain amount of my time. My husband gets an equal amount of time. My work gets an equal amount of time. My health gets an equal amount of time. And it sounds like it would bring me a lot of peace. But the idea that I'm going to present to you is that it's not. It's not because, and here's why, because it does not align with the principles of the world that we live in. And I'm not just talking about the world as in the social constructed world. I'm talking about the world that is nature, the world that is like, Earth, planet Earth, and this universe that we live in. And so when I'm talking to women about this, particularly my clients, because, this is our work, I really offer this idea that balance is a social construct. Balance is an idea that is saying, yeah, it's possible for you to divide your life up like pizza slices. And that is so not the case, especially for us as women, because we're not even wired that way, in our cyclical nature, we're not wired that way. So what I offer in place of the idea of balance is harmony. And I think that the pursuit of balance is very admirable. And I understand the place from which it comes because I think when women say we want balance, what we're actually really craving is more so stability, right? And stability is consistency, reliability, and endurance over time, right? We want to know that we are going to be able to feel capable, like we can really be with whatever comes our way and that it's not going to overtake us or that something in our lives doesn't break or fall apart under pressure or under strain, or it doesn't fall apart if I'm not taking care of it actively, right? I can let it go. I can let it live. And that stability can feel like safety. It can feel like a very safe place. And also, stability does not go hand in hand with balance, right? Balance does not create stability, and stability does not create balance all the time. And so, if you go, okay, Katie, well, if it's not balance and it's not stability, then where does harmony fit, right? What I would offer is that harmony fits in the space of really embracing the fluidity of life and not just the fluidity of life, but the fluidity of being a woman, you know, and, and the idea that, there's internal harmony, right? There's this internal harmony that we can live with where we know that our values, our thoughts, and our actions are aligned. And in our relationships, we can give other people the space to be in harmony as well. And we can see this in the most potent illustration with nature, right? There are flowers that bloom once a year. There are flowers that bloom year round. There are flowers that bloom for certain seasons and not other seasons. And we're not fighting about that. We're not fighting about why one flower blooms all year long and the other flowers do not. And we're not judging the flowers based on their ability and their timeline of their bloom. And so I wonder why we do that to ourselves. And it's not so important as to why we do that to ourselves, but maybe the more important question is, does that support us? Does that actually support us? Because if we're looking for balance, then what we're saying is equilibrium, but we're also we're deeply craving to be seen and valued for our uniqueness. And uniqueness is not a part of equilibrium inherently. And so, what we get to invite ourselves into as a consideration is this idea that maybe harmony, which actually is a part of nature, which actually is a part of being here on planet Earth, it's a principle of being and living in this universe. Maybe harmony is the thing that actually transcends balance and transcends stability. And harmony actually creates stability, right? And we can see this when I think about this, I think about the bees, right? I think about the bees that use the flowers to pollinate, to collect pollen and to create honey. And they have this ecosystem, right? Where they leverage the other resources in their environment to create what needs to be created. And so when I think about balance, I think about like, am I wanting balance because I am really wanting safety, or am I wanting balance because I want to feel like I've got everything under control? And that to me is the crux of it, is when I hear a woman say, I want balance. And when I've in the past said, I want balance, what I'm saying without saying it is I don't feel capable. I feel like I'm failing in certain areas and I'm excelling in other areas. And I feel bad about the fact that I'm failing in other areas of my life where I actually want to be great, where I actually want to be able to give more, where I actually want to show up in a different way. But I feel like I can't because I can't let this other thing go, because if I let this other thing go, it's going to fail. And can you see how it's rooted in fear and it's rooted in insecurity? Whereas if I can align myself to this idea of harmony, then what I know is that there's this ebb and flow that's naturally going to happen, right? There are these seasons that come, and there's a unique frequency to each season, and there's a unique assignment to each season, and there's a unique purpose for each season. And can I allow myself to surrender to this idea that I am not supposed to, nor am I designed to, show up at 100% all the time in every single area of my life, that each season is going to look different, right? And so I see this, I can also see this in sports, right? Having been an athlete and now I'm raising a son who's an athlete, right? You're not in football season all the time. Why? Because it's not sustainable, It's not sustainable to be in full pads and helmet and tackling all the time, year round. Your body's not built for it. And so, in order to create harmony, what we do is we have a football season. And then after football season, we go into a recovery season. Then after recovery season, we start a conditioning season where we start to prepare, right? And then we start a practice season. And then before we jump into helmets and pads, we do some more conditioning and then some more drills. And then once we, get used to wearing the helmet without pads, then we put pads on. And then once we put pads on, we review tackling technique, right? And so there's this idea that like there's a season for everything and there's phases for everything. And there are phases in my relationship, right, with my husband where we're aligned and we're clicking and we're going and we're moving. And then there's seasons where it's like we're figuring it out and he's changing and I'm changing and we're redesigning things. And, but imagine how boring a life would be if everything was equal all the time and everything was predictable all the time. And imagine how I would have to abandon my feminine nature in order to achieve that. Because the feminine nature is creative, right? We love newness and we love excitement and we love to be witnessed and to be seen. And in order for me to have balance as written, as the idea that is presented of, I would need to become a robot. And I am not a robot. And I don't think you're a robot. So I'm encouraging you and I'm offering you this idea of harmony over balance. And harmony requires faith. It requires the faith that your care will be infused into every place and space that you show up into. And there are going to be seasons where you're showing up amazing in your relationship and it's everything that you want it to be. And it's like this beautiful, beautiful alchemy that's happening there. And then there are seasons where you're not going to be showing up that way in your relationship because it's a work season, right? It's a season of, you know, of really focusing and really doing the day-to-day work and really executing. And like that's a season, right? What we do is we give ourselves the grace. We go, this is the season, right? And the magic in this is the acceptance of like, I'm not going to fight gravity anymore because balance is counterintuitive to the principles of this world, of planet Earth, of the universe that we live in. And so why am I fighting gravity? What if I surrendered and leaned into the laws of nature? And the laws of nature are harmony. It includes grief, it includes loss, and it includes pivoting, it includes newness, it includes, you know, to plant seeds and to let them take root and to water them, right? And be present when nothing seems to be happening. And that's a really beautiful place to be because that's where we make space for the miracles of life itself. And I believe that you are worthy of the miracles of life itself. So I'm offering you this. I hope you have a beautiful day. Let me know how this lands for you, and I'll talk to you soon.